So, lockdown, what a shit show it's been. You know, lots of people experienced a lot of downs, but throughout all of this negativity, there's definitely been a few ups as well, silver linings, if we could call it that. And that couldn't speak more true in the fishing than myself and a few friends experienced over this period. Red letter sessions, in fact. You know, all of this started when the president announced that restrictions would be eased. You know, after a period of not fishing, you know, going borderline insane, you know, this was a very welcome revelation. So, our fishing started off at the infamous Aqua Paradiso, where we are today. You know, we spent our first night of fishing in, what was it, 3 or 4 months. And we got into a fish or two, but the fishing was really slow. And, you know, with the forecast rolling in, we had another venue in mind that we knew was going to do exceptionally well with, you know, the drop in pressure and the weather rolling in. And the venue in question is Laurentia. And to say we've had a result at Laurentia would be a total understatement. You know, we kicked the session off. From the off, we started getting fish. You know, I think our rods were in for, it couldn't have been, 10 minutes and we were off. And we just had a ridiculous amount of fish. I was lucky enough to land one of the big residents of the lake, a good 30-pounder. And in between all of them, we landed a few characters as well, you know, really nice mirrors. So yeah, that's basically where it all kicked off, these red letter sessions. From Laurentia, we decided that, you know, due to the stock of fish that the infamous Berse holds, we started to do a bit of a winter campaign on there. And again, to say that that went well would be a complete understatement. We did all of about 5 fairly long sessions. And again, we landed most of the big fish in the lake. You know, I had one of the biggest fish in the lake at just under 40 pounds. And Bran, my partner in crime during this whole period, also had a few character fish, you know, banking himself, I think it was a mid-30, a fish that I was lucky enough to catch as well. So yeah, Berse went really well. We shot some nice footage there. You know, we've got videos available if you want to go check that out. But that was just part of the story. So from Berse, we went to Harties. And again, we just smashed it out of the park, you know, a total red letter session, so much so that we actually ran out of terminal tackle and bait. I think we did the maths and we had in excess of a ton of fish in 4 or 5 days? I think it was 4 nights. No, 3 nights, something like that. We just totally smashed it out of the park, you know, big fish after big fish. 30s, we each had a few 30s. We actually did a return weekend with our good friend Alex Costa, and he managed to break both of his PBs, you know, his common PB and his mirror PB. From Harties, I went on to fish a little notorious, very intimate lake known as Lapa Specimen Camp. Now, I must admit, I've never been fond of this lake ever since I saw it initially, because I just didn't get a feel for the lake when I saw it. I know there was a few nice fish in it, but you know, it didn't really, I didn't catch the atmosphere as such. And but in saying that, another good friend of mine, Chris, caught a ridiculous ghost carp known as Casper. And you know, I saw those photos and I was like, you know, there's definitely something in this. There's a few nice fish in this lake, so I might as well give it a go. So Chris actually managed to secure a session for us on the lake. It was only a weekend session. And it just so happened that the fish were at their top weights. You know, it was a week or two before spawn, and the stars just aligned. We went on to have the session where I managed to break my PB, and not just that, managed to catch a new lake record. It was a magnificent fish, you know, probably still one of my favorite captures to date. You know, everything about that fish was just perfect, so much so that, you know, the name it was given, the tank, just suits all of its characteristics perfectly. So I had that fish, and, you know, that fish actually shifted our fishing over this period into 6th gear, because ever since that capture, we've just been, I don't know what it is, just the time of year, just the stars aligning, but we just caught ridiculous fish, like really big fish, you know, all over the show. Everywhere we went, we caught big fish. I followed the Lapa session up with it was supposed to be just like a chilled social session with my very good friend Jaco. And well, Alex joined as well. Don't forget about Alex. Again, he broke his PB. And another good friend of ours that I already mentioned, Bran, also joined in on the action. And again, to say that we had a result at Donny's, I keep on saying this, but it would be an understatement, because if the previous sessions were red letter sessions, these must have been red letter sessions, or a red letter session rather. You know, we land somewhere in excess of 5 40-pounders. Again, another fish of just huge proportions, so much so it actually ended up being another lake record. Jaco was lucky enough to catch this fish. As for Bran, you know, he caught what's known as probably the most desirable fish in Donny's, a fish known as Rocky. It's just look at this fish, it's insane. Words can't really describe it. It's definitely a fish I'd like to catch one day. And yeah, the session just progressed. I caught a 40-pounder, Bran had 2 40-pounders, Jaco had a 50 and a 40, and in between all of that, we just had loads of 30s to back that up, and a few smaller fish, but like really character fish, like short, stubby character fish. So from Donny's, and the whole point of this video is to get to the climax of where this season of angling, let's call it season of angling, well, I wouldn't say it ended, but it all came to a climax, you know, when we went on our annual big trip. You know, myself and Jaco, we do a yearly or an annual big trip for at least a week. And it's always been at Klipkopje. Now, Klipkopje. It was probably my most frustrating session ever. You know, I've never felt despondent, or, you know, I've never been in such a space of mind where I actually just wanted to give up. You know, I've always enjoyed when other people catch big fish, because I really enjoy capturing the moment in video and photo format. Now, we did a week at Klipkopje. I think we left on a Friday afternoon. you know, and for everybody that's fished Klipkopje in the past, you know, it's a fairly big drive from Pretoria. We drove through the night, hectic traffic. You know, we had the most bizarre mist on our way, you know, passing through the Donaldson area on our way to the dam. I think we arrived at the dam at around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And between Jaco and myself, we actually, well, in the car, we discussed that we weren't going to put the rods out. We were just going to pitch our tents, get our bed chairs out and just get our heads down, you know, for a rest, because we were properly knackered. I mean, he worked the Friday, I worked the Friday, so it's been a full day. But when we arrived at the lake, the excitement just got to us, you know, and before we knew it, we were all rigged up, all baited up, and on the boat. I think this was at 2 a.m. in the morning, and you know, we found ourselves searching for spots. So the first full morning, you know, came by, and Jaco kicked the session off with a nice, I think it was like a lower 30-pound common, and you know, the session just progressed from there, for Jaco anyway. You know, I was confident all the way up until I think the midway point. You know, I've got confidence in the rigs I use. I've got confidence in my approach. So, you know, the fact that I started doubting myself, it just goes to show the best things comes to those who wait, you know, patient people. You know, just stick to your guns and it happens. But yeah, so Jaco caught that fish on the first morning, and like I said, the session just progressed from there. I think we spent all of 3 mornings on those first swims we fished. It was swim 20 to 22, and we got into a few fish, but it was a smaller stamper fish. Now, people that know Klipkopje know that the fish tend to move in schools of different sizes, and then you get your loner fish. So Jaco really started getting into, you know, the smaller stamper fish. Through the first 3 or 4 mornings, you know, each morning it'd catch a fish, but, you know, a 30-pound fish isn't a small fish, but that's not the reason you go to Klipkopje for. So he was catching consistently. I wasn't catching. I think up till this point, I've only had 1 or 2 catfish because I was fishing pop-ups. I quickly took those off and just stuck to the tigers. And then we got onto the phone with Bran, and, you know, had a bit of a brainstorm with Bran, and, you know, came to the conclusion that in order to move away from the small stamper fish, we had to move. Now, this sounds insane because the area we moved to, there was no fish showing. There was no signs of activity. Now, again, for anyone that knows Klipkopje, you've got to be on the fish to catch them, and the fish normally gives themselves away. You know, they tend to show, they call it dolphin, tend to bubble, and, you know, when you see those signs, you are bound to catch a fish. Now, in this insane turn of events, we decided to move to an area where it was completely devoid of activity. But the thought process behind that was that, you know, the smaller fish we were catching was clearly held up in front of us, so we had to move away from them. So we took this massive gamble and we moved into the shallower parts of the lake. I think the swims we fished was I think it was from swim 10 to 13, or was it 13 to 15? 14 to, sorry, it was 14 to 15. So yeah, we made the move. Obviously, with doing something as you know, one would call it insane as that, you know, moving away from showing fish and activity. In our minds, we were starting to question our move, but we've done the move. We moved the kid. You know, we've found our spots. Believe this or not, but we actually fished in, I think the deepest water we fished in was 5 foot. So, you know, we really questioned the move, but between myself and Jaco, we decided that we're just going to stick to our guns. You know, we moved away from the smaller fish, and like I said earlier, there is a certain group of the really big fish in Klipkopje that do tend to, you know, move alone. They break away from the bigger group of fish, and they just do their thing on their own. So the first morning after our move, it was confirmed that the move we made was totally the right choice. Jaco kicked well, I couldn't say the session. Jaco kicked our move, so the fresh move off with a 40 pounder, actually a very well-known fish. And I think he followed that up with another smaller fish. I think at this point we had 4 mornings left, 3 or 4 mornings left. Now, Jaco started catching consistently. You know, every morning he had a 40 pounder. And something bizarre actually happened. Now, again, for people that know Klipkopje well, you don't really catch fish at night. So, like I said, in a bizarre turn of events, Jaco actually caught a fish of ginormous proportions. Like when I netted the fish and we put that fish on the boat, it was just, we were speechless. You know, it's seeing a fish like that, it blows your mind. Anyway, he caught a new PB fish at, I think it was 2 in the morning. So that was very strange because, like I said, Klipkopje and doing bites at night, it just doesn't happen. Now, I think the reason behind that was the fact that the water was, you know, at this point, the water was so low that, you know, those big fish were just passing over our beds of bait, and it must be difficult to swim over a properly presented rig and, you know, not have a go at that rig. So anyway, so yeah, Jaco caught this fish at 4 a.m. I can't remember the time, man. I think it was like 2 in the morning. We were very surprised. So because, you know, sunrise was only a few hours away, we decided to sling this fish. And when it came to actually, you know, taking those very important trophy shots in the morning, as he brought the fish out of the water to put it onto the mat, and he opened the sling, we both just looked at each other like, I think in a surprising way, because we both at that very moment were thinking the same thing. You know, we couldn't believe that this fish he just caught was the very same fish he caught on our very first session together at Klipkopje. Now, the first time round, he caught it at what was back then a PB weight of, Jaco, forgive me for forgetting the weight of the fish here, but it was around 48 to 49 pounds in that region. This time round, he caught it at 54 pounds. Was it 54? 53, 54 pounds? Which is just, it's insane for anyone that's seen a fish of that size. It's just mind-blowing. So that was pretty cool. You know, he caught the same fish 2 years apart. You know, both times being his new PB, other than the lake record he broke at Donny's. So he caught that fish. I think on sunrise, he caught another 40. He just caught a lot of 40s. I mean, it's now, up until this point, I haven't had a fish yet. Now, like I said earlier, I don't get despondent. I don't start to doubt myself. I've got 1,001% confidence in what I do, you know, my approach. And at this point, I was just losing the plot, you know. I was moving spots, I was changing rigs, I was changing baits. You know, it just got to me. I wouldn't mind admitting that it really just got to me. Now, it created a bit of a shitty atmosphere, if I'm honest. Although I was still super happy for Jaco catching all of these big fish, you know. At this point, it would have been nice for me just to catch a fish. I just wanted a fish. So obviously Jaco noticed that I was getting despondent and I was down in the dumps, and so he did his very best to keep me motivated and just to keep me going, you know. He spoiled me with a lot of great food, a lot of coffee. Now, to add to me being despondent about, you know, my result this far, we had the most tremendous weather you can ever think of, like the most carpy weather, but it was just pissing down with rain. Everything was sopping wet. We didn't have dry clothes. We were cold, and the only thing really keeping us warm at this point was the coffee and the warm food. So I think on the second to last morning, Jaco had another nice fish, and you know, at this point, Jaco also just really wanted me to catch a fish. So, in a very, very kind, you know, move from his part, he actually gave me the opportunity to fish the spots he's been fishing. You know, again, I sort of copied his rigs, his approach. He was fishing with single tigers tipped with a bit of foam, and you know, I did the same thing. And you know, I must say it was uplifting. I had a renewed sense of confidence, and you know, we went into that last night. You know, obviously there was still a sense of doubt, but you know, like I said, I just felt something had to happen. I mean, I was now on the dance floor, fishing the hot spots that Jaco's been catching all these fish from. And you know, morning broke, Jaco didn't get a fish, I didn't get a fish, and this feeling of despondency just came down on me again. So much so that at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I told Jaco, you know, let's just call it quits. I'm not gonna catch a fish. I don't care anymore. You've had a nice result. I'm happy for you, but let's just go home, because we had a long drive home. And, you know, we were tired at this point. I was a bit irritated, and I just told Jaco, let's just call it quits. And Jaco said no. He just refused. He refused to leave without me catching a fish. So I was sitting there just staring at the water, you know, 1,001 things running through my mind. But at the back of my mind, you know, I knew I was fishing the hot spots producing the fish. And I was actually sitting looking at my right-hand rod that was fishing to an area known to produce mirrors. They actually call it, that section of the dam, they call it Mirror City. And I was just, you know, in a numb sense of mind, I was just, you know, staring at this rod. And the next moment, my bobbin just felt slack completely. And I stared at the rod for a moment and I couldn't figure out why it would do that, you know. There was a few crayfish about, and they were a real nuisance, especially with the backleads. You know, they were playing with our backleads all the time and, you know, getting false indication and all of that. And I thought to myself, oh, flippin' hell, man, you know, a bloody crayfish just, I don't know how, but he managed to bite through my 30-pound J-braid. So I stood up, I took a walk to the rod, and I started pulling on the line, you know, just pulling on the line to figure out, you know, where all the slack is coming from. Now, as I was doing this, I was pulling the line and it's just slack all the way. As I was doing this, Jaco saw me and he said, pick the rod up, it's a backbite. And I'm like, no man, it can't be. And he's like, just pick the damn rod up. So I picked the rod up, you know, reeled in the slack, and next moment I just hit into this. Yes, it felt like a bus, a train, and I was hooked into a fish, and I couldn't believe it. I started shivering. I started, you know, in South Africa, when hunting, they call it bokkoors. In this case, I must have had viskoors. So. Started shivering and I shouted to Jaco, just bring the boat, we need to go out and land this fish. And you know, I jumped on the boat, and whilst I was playing this fish on the boat, Jaco just laughed at me because I was shivering so hectically that the boat was actually shivering, and it looked like we had some form of vibrating platform we were standing on because I was just shivering. And we got on top of this fish, I was fighting it, and the next moment we just got a slight glimpse of this fish and we saw it was a mirror. You know, I got the bite from Mirror City and it was a mirror. Now, if I wasn't shivering enough prior to this, I was like proper shaking, losing my head at this point. So Jaco just told me, you know, keep calm, I know the way you're feeling, but just keep a level head. Let's just get this fish in the net. So I tried my utmost best, and you know, long story short, well, not really. The battle went on for another 5 minutes, and I netted this fish. And when this fish went into the net, we both just went apeshit, like completely kissing, hugging. It was just a big show, you know. I landed a fish, I blanked for the best part of a week and a bit. I landed a fish and it ended up being a mirror. Now, Klipkopje is not known for producing mirrors. In fact, a very small number of the fish population, you know, makes up that mirror count. So there I was, I caught a fish after all this time and it was a mirror. You know, we went back to the bank, put the fish on the mat, and when we actually put the fish on the mat, we saw the full magnitude of this fish. You know, insane, like the most craziest scale pattern. You know, it was just a typical wild African mirror carp. We put the mirror on the scales and it went 16.9 kilos. So weight at this point was irrelevant. Remember, I just wanted to catch a fish so badly up until this point that I was completely made up. Okay, so we finally came to the end of our session. What a session it's been. It's been my longest session by far, and Jaco's longest session by far as well. 9 days of hard work, a lot of ups and downs. It's been a extremely good session for Jaco. He's landed numerous big fish, 40-pound fish, a proper 50-pounder, actually an old friend of ours. He's appeared in a previous video. So yeah, it's been a ridiculous session. We had to work, well, I had to work my socks off. I had to change a lot. In the end, I actually adopted Jaco's tactics, you know, just to get into a fish or two. And to be honest, I thought it wasn't going to happen. I mean, on our last day, it's pissing down with rain, and yeah, I went and did it. And what a fish it is. I actually came with the goal of catching a 40, and although this isn't a 40, it is a mirror, which in my mind is more of an achievement at this crazy venue. So yeah, let's quickly take a look at it. There he is. It's we keep a good record of the fish in this lake, and we haven't seen this one you know, on the record as far. So we thought of actually naming this one Rocky for very obvious reasons. The anglers in the know will know why we call this one Rocky. But yeah, it's I think in the end the fish weighed 16.9 kg if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, my only fish for the session, but I wouldn't trade this fish for any other. So I'm extremely happy. Yeah, so yeah, like I said, we came to the end of our session. We're busy packing up, and we're about to hit the long road home. We're probably going to get home very late, but yeah, it's all been worth it. So we were doing the filming of this fish, taking a few stills. Whilst we were doing this, I just heard a Delcom in the background. Now, I didn't register what was happening immediately, but when this Delcom went into full meltdown, you know, I realized, shit, I just had another run. I quickly retained the mirror, put it back into the water because we didn't get all the shots we wanted yet. And I picked up this other rod, and the moment I picked it up, I could just feel this, you know, this heavy weight. It felt like I was dragging a plastic bag through the water. Now, this fish didn't put up a massive battle, but it gave a good account of itself. You know, playing fish in such shallow water, they don't really have a lot of space to work with. So this fish just came in on a tight line, you know, kiting a bit to the right, and throughout this battle, it just had these like very subtle head bumps, you know, typical signs of being a really big fish. So I had this fish on for the best part of 15 minutes, and it went into the net. Jaco netted this fish, and I couldn't believe my eyes. Now, up until this point, I've caught a lot of fish at Klipkopje, but never had a 40-pounder. So Jaco netted this fish, and he just looked at me and he's like, you've just caught it. You've just caught, you know, your new PB. And this after I caught that big fish from Lapa, must have been a month and a half prior. And I just looked at him, and you know, when he brought that fish out of the water, he put it in the sling and we put it on the mat. I was lost for words. I couldn't believe my eyes. Just this ginormous, you know, full-bellied, full-bodied submarine of a common carp. And at this point, I was, you know, all of those thoughts and doubts and despondency just went away in an instant. And I was just on cloud nine, you know, the happiest man on earth at that point. So we hoisted this fish up on the scales, and she went 22 kilos flat. So there I was, 2 fish in the slings, you know, on the very last day of our session. In fact, we extended our stay to the point where we shouldn't have actually. At this point, we should have been packed up and we should have been halfway home. So there I was, these 2 fish, you know, I just had to take a breather because I couldn't believe it. The moment was just so overwhelming. So I got a level head, we took the mirror out again, we did a bit of filming with that. Now at this point, it was just pissing with rain, like everything was wet. Now the camera I shoot with is weatherproof, but I really tested the limits of this weatherproofing capabilities of this camera on the specific day. So we got all the cool shots of this mirror carp, you know, returned that, took this ginormous, got this ginormous common carp onto the mat, you know, started taking a few stills of this new PB that I caught. And the next moment, the camera just bombed out. I think I got 1 or 2 clips, 1 or 2 cutaway clips of this common, and the camera just bombed out. Now, like I said, I tested the waterproofing capabilities of this camera to the max. You know, it was sopping wet. It actually looked like I dumped the camera in the lake. It was that bad. So the camera bombed out. Now, luckily at this point, I had a few nice stills, which I suppose is the most important part. But I couldn't capture this moment of my new PB Common, you know, in film format. So there I was thinking, shit, you know, I got 1 or 2 nice stills. What am I going to do now? I would really like to capture this in film, just, you know, as a memory, and to, you know, to do what I'm doing here. And then Jaco told me, listen, he's got a proper phone, you know, it shoots 4K and all of that. He told me, the camera bombed out, there's nothing we can do about that. Let's just do it with the phone. So we did it with the phone. You know, I would have loved doing it with the camera, but I think that moment was just so tremendous. It didn't bother me that much. You know, we got a few clips with the phone. It's not bad. It's, you know, it's something. At least the memory was captured. And yeah, we did everything we had to do. I released the fish and I was just on cloud 9. You know, the weeks following that was all I could think about. You know, I'd love to experience that moment again. But yeah, no, what a tremendous, you know, time it's been in my fishing, and, you know, sharing these moments with great friends such as Brandon and Jaco. You know, I just couldn't ask for more. God, how was that?